this video is devoted to, and I think this should be an overarching video for our entire class, because we are talking about adolescent guidance. This class is a class on adolescent guidance. And there are some overarching principles that determine how we will counsel adolescents. One of the primary things that we need to consider, and this comes out of our discussion of juvenile justice, so if you missed the juvenile justice video, go back and watch it too, please. Who is our client? It's on page 105 of your text. Who is the client? One may be tempted to say really quickly, well, it's the adolescent. Duh. What is it? And say, yeah, you're right. But if that client is under 18, is that adolescent truly, completely your client? Who has the determination whether that client will be seen by you? So we need to also be thinking about guardian. Really, I'm looking at adolescents between the ages of 12 and 17 here. Who else might we think about? So if they're referred from juvenile justice, they have another person that's interested in them, that's mandating that they go. That's the juvenile justice system, so that might be a probation officer. Or a judge. Let's say that, let's just broaden the scope of this discussion a little bit. Let's say that you are performing school-based services, and they didn't necessarily come through the juvenile justice system, but the school identifies there are problems with this student. They're disrupting class, they're not getting their grades, they're not doing their work, they're not coming to school a lot of time, they appear hungry, they appear dirty. Who else is interested? Okay, have teachers that are interested. People at the school. Who else might be interested in how your client is doing? Well, let's say that their home was dirty, and let's say that they went into foster care. Oh my goodness. So you have child welfare, child welfare worker, social worker, and let's say that they're in foster care too. You also have a foster parent. This is an important conversation. So I want you, if you're thinking about working with kids on any level, whether you're going to teach them, whether you're going to counsel them, whether you're going to coach them, I really want you to think about this. If I could highlight a part of the semester, this would be it, just as big almost as the trauma-focused portion. And the reason why is because look at all the folks that you potentially answer to when you work with adolescents. Not only the adolescent, their guardian. What happens if there's a divorce? Then you have dad or possibly grandparents. They're raising them. Aunts, uncles, guardians, multiple guardians. That can get tricky, especially in custody situations. You could have a probation officer. You could have a judge. You could have teachers, school, teachers, multiple teachers, child welfare worker. You have a foster parent involved too, and then you can have a foster parent involved with the regular guardians. If there's reunification, if the child's in child welfare custody, but there's reunification plans, then you've got not only foster parents, but you've got biological family as well. So what is difficult? What is the most difficult part of working with adolescents? Each one of those would be considered third parties. And anytime you're working with third parties, let's say here's you, the counselor. There's the adolescent. Okay, it's great. You have a really good rapport with your adolescent, and they tell you, you know what, I'm afraid that I'm pregnant. I haven't told anybody. You have to promise that you cannot tell anybody. But this adolescent and you are also beholden to the parent or parents. So in that situation, who is the client? Tricky situations arise all the time. This is what makes counseling adolescents and even children difficult. Because there are always third parties involved. Which is good, because you don't have to take complete ownership on how the adolescent does. But it's difficult because you have to know. You absolutely have to know how to navigate, how to communicate, how to be appropriate with that interaction, both between you and the parents and the adolescents, in keeping this trust tree. Or the trust tree with the probation officer, or the communication with the social worker, or the communication with the teacher, or the communication with the foster parent. Because anytime that you do not disclose enough information to these folks, what happens? Well, you're kind of out here in limbo by yourself. You don't want to form too heavy an alliance with the adolescent, because they could tell you something that gets you in hot water with all these people. I'm going to throw a judge in there too. I don't ever want to be in hot water with the judge. Okay, I've been using drugs, but you can't tell anybody, because I'll swear to God that I won't tell them. Okay, so that's you get that conversation from an adolescent. What do? You have to figure it out. So these are some tricky situations that you have to know how to navigate going in. And so I cannot impress upon you enough. And a lot of times there are ethical guidelines that help us through this. So there's ethics classes when you go to psychology. If you go to counsel, we have an ethics class. But there are a few different rules for kids that are 16 and over versus 15 and under. There are also specific rules for people that are 14 and under. in particular regarding sexual behaviors. So what is the legal age of consent? Let's say you have an 18-year-old female that tells you, I'm dating a senior who's 18 and we're having sex. Oh my goodness, I haven't told my parents. You know, you're like, well, I don't ever want to have. I'm never gonna let that adolescent trust me, so they tell me that stuff. I just don't want to know. The problem with that approach is, how effective are you if your adolescent doesn't trust you and they don't share anything, they keep everything bottled up and they don't share? How effective is that in counseling? So it's important to know how to navigate these situations. So I encourage you strongly to post about this on your posting. And let's see, we have chapter 13 coming up. What was that going to be? Chemical and addiction behaviors. Yeah, I wish we had more time. This we could have a whole class over this. So be aware that when you are counseling an adolescent, you are not just engaging with the adolescent. You are engaging with guardians, probation officers, judges, teachers, schools, child welfare workers, possibly foster parents, possibly other people too. So keep that in mind.